like, girl, all this content that you're pushing out, all these videos that you're pumping out, we get it, Courtney, consistency, that's important, but who has time for that? This process is what I use even right now, even today, to quickly come up with content, whether it's for YouTube, podcasts, etc. In this video, I wanted to share not just my content creation secrets, but how I do content very, very quickly. Hey, CourtneyLSanders here. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to me, I'm a full-time online life and business coach as well as wife and mom. I wear all the hats and I do all the things, and I'm pretty sure you're probably wearing all the hats and doing all the things as well. And you're like, girl, all this content that you're pushing out, all these videos that you're pumping out, we get it, Courtney, consistency, that's important, but who has time for that? And I'm very cognizant about this because I feel like it's an excuse, but people like to say, oh, it's easy for you because you have a team, even though they don't realize, even though I say it all the time, that I've been producing content consistently well before I had a team, well before I was even making money in this business, well before this was even my full-time job. When I was actually working a full-time job and, driving to work and doing all this, I was still creating consistent content. And if you don't believe me, check my receipts, right? You can scroll back on my Instagram channel. You can go on my website and see at the time I was blogging and all the blogs that were still there. And so in this video, I wanted to share not just my content creation secrets, but how I do content very, very quickly. And this is actually fitting because oftentimes I'm still kind of like finalizing the video topics, even as I'm driving here to my condo. So you guys know I have a short-term rental property that I purchased in Houston, Texas. And so I've been experimenting with using it as my content studio. I keep calling it my creator content. Let me know how you like the backdrop of these videos versus the ones that I've done in my house. But anyway, even as I'm like driving down the road to get here, oftentimes I'm still thinking about like, ooh, I still have a few videos that I need to outline or a few videos that I want to finish up. So this process is what I use even right now, even today, to quickly come up with content, whether it's for YouTube, podcasts, etc. So I'm not spending so much time coming up with it. So if you want to know my speed content creation secrets, you're in luck because we're gonna get into it right now. All right, the first thing that I do, like my go-to when I'm like, oh, I need to get content off right away, is I immediately jump to my frequently asked questions. And this is actually something I'm getting better about, because oftentimes I get asked questions and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, it seems very obvious to me, and I'm reluctant to create content on it because I'm like, isn't it obvious, right? In fact, I had a video that you can check out here, wherever it shows up on the screen, about how I batch create content. And I thought that was obvious. I know that sounds ridiculous, but everyone was asking me, how do you create all this content? You're doing, 20 videos a month, videos Monday through Friday. And to me, I'm like, clearly it's obvious that I'm batch creating content. Y'all know I'm a mom of 2 kids, right? Busy wife and mom. So I thought it was obvious that I was batch creating my content, but just because something is obvious doesn't mean that it's obvious to your audience, or even if they know like high level what you're doing, they still want the details. So look at the frequently asked questions that you're getting and look at the frequently asked questions that you're avoiding. It might be something that you think is too simple to create content on, but it's actually not too simple. It's something that you need to do. Also, another thing you'll want to think about is if you're getting frequently asked questions about how you live your life or something that you're doing specifically, consider documenting. So this is something that I'll be experimenting with more on the channel. Stay tuned for some behind the scenes vlogs, but that's a frequently asked question that I get. It's not just, oh, Courtney, how do you create a coaching business or whatever? A frequently asked question that I get is, can you show the behind the scenes of your life? So think about what are the things that you do or that you know or whatever, how you are on a regular basis. And instead of thinking about, okay, how can I create how-to content that necessarily teaches someone how to do something, also ask yourself, can you maybe document it or kind of turn it into a vlog style? All right, so going along with the previous step about thinking about your frequently asked questions, even if you think they're obvious, another thing that you'll want to do is break it down. So one thing that I see people do that really stresses them out when it comes to content creation is that they're like, okay, people are asking me this question and they think they have to answer it in a very broad way, right? So again, I get a lot of questions around how are you managing all of this as a busy wife and mom, et cetera, et cetera. It would be very stressful for me to sit down and think like, oh, how can I create a video that answers all the things that go into, running my business and creating content and all of that as a busy wife and mom. But if I break it down into a specific aspect of that, for instance, another kind of like micro question that I get as a part of that broader question is, how do you find support in your home? People know that I have a nanny, I have a meal prep chef that comes, I have a housekeeper, and they're like, how do you find people that are good, that are trustworthy? Where'd you find your nanny from? That's like a frequently asked question that I get all the time. So that's a way that I can break down something that seems like a broad topic and it might be stressing you out or taking a long time to create it because you're trying to like cover all the things. Ask yourself, is there just like one little bitty micro aspect of that question that people are asking you? Can you break that down? And then that can become content. Another thing that you'll want to do, in addition to thinking about frequently asked questions, and of course breaking that down, another thing you want to think about is frequently made mistakes. So this is something maybe people aren't asking you, but maybe in the way that they're asking the question, you're like, oh, that's a mistake you're making. For instance, along this theme of this question of how do you create so much content, a lot of people were asking the question, how do you find so much time during the day to create all of your content? And I was like thinking to myself, I'm not finding time during the day. Again, busy wife and mom, I'm finding time during the month, taking like one day out of the month and batch creating this content. And so I started to realize the way that people were wording the question, the way that they were asking me about it, let me know that there was a mistake that they were making, namely thinking or believing that they have to create content in the moment the way they see a lot of other influencers do. So, and maybe that works for various people. I know people who are like, oh, I can never batch create content. I need it to be fresh and I'm more enthusiastic when I'm creating it in the moment. Just being real, I see that a lot from a lot of younger online business people, younger online coaches, younger influencers. I remember to a degree I was that way in my 20s, certainly before I had kids. But I find that, my moms, those of us who are in our 30s and 40s tend to be like, look, I am not trying to be on Instagram every single day. They're very about this batch content creation life. But again, because they were assuming that they had to do it the same way that they see everybody else doing it, the way they were asking me the question gave me a hint that that was actually a mistake that they were making. So look back at your frequently asked questions and say, the way people are asking this question, does this tip me off that they're actually making mistakes? Or even not related to questions that they're asking. Maybe it's just mistakes that people are making, right? There are mistakes plenty of online coaches make when it comes to pricing themselves, branding themselves. Like I see it all the time, maybe with the clients that you work with, as you are working with them as a part of your coaching engagement, you see consistent mistakes that they're making. Those mistakes can become your content. So think about what those mistakes might be and then very simply create content on it. All right, I have more where that came from, but first I want to hear from you. Are you fast at creating content or does it take you a long time? Share in the comments below. All right, the next thing that is one of my favorite ways to come up with content very quickly is simply to create spin-off content. I don't know why more people don't do this, but it's so easy. So if you go through all the steps that I mentioned previously, maybe you're looking at frequently asked questions or frequently made mistakes or whatever, and you're coming up with topics, when you look at that topic list, then ask yourself, what is a spin-off that can be for that topic, right? So even this video right here, how to create content very quickly. A spin-off topic that I can create is, I don't know, how to batch create content, mistakes people make when creating their content, my favorite platforms to create content on, how to create paid content versus free content. So you see how all of these are related topics, but they're kind of spin-off topics to the topic that I just came up with. So again, look at your frequently asked questions, look at your frequently made mistakes, and then when you come up with that topic, ask yourself, what's a spin-off that I can make that, again, will help me think about more content topics that I can create very quickly. Okay, the next thing that you'll want to do, and this is a little esoteric, but I find that it makes a big difference, is simply you want to trust yourself. A lot of the reason it takes us so much time to create content and why there's so much angst and frustration and stress is simply because we don't trust ourselves. One, we don't trust ourselves in the topics that we're coming up with. And two, we don't trust ourselves in the insight that we're giving. We ask, is it good enough? Well, there's other coaches talking about this topic. How does mine measure up? All that junk that we keep in our head is actually friction that prevents us from creating content quickly. So the first thing when it comes to trusting yourself is you need to trust your own interests. So as I've mentioned in previous videos, I often will create content topics based on things that I'm personally interested in, things that I'm personally going through. In the last batch of videos I did, there was a lot of content and discussion around my trip to South Africa because it was coming up, and now I'm on the other side. It was about 2 or 3 weeks ago that I held my first international retreat in South Africa, but I had a lot of content that was kind of loosely related and loosely connected to that because that was something that was relevant in my life. Obviously, it was something that I was very excited about, something that I was personally interested in. So you want to think about, where are you in your life? What is your interest? What's like like a hot thing for you that you're really focused on, and trust yourself that you can create content on it and that it's going to be helpful for your audience. In addition to trusting yourself in terms of what you're talking about, you want to trust yourself in the way that you're talking about it or the type of insight that you are providing. So oftentimes people don't think maybe that they're giving good enough content, and so it takes longer and longer for them to create content because they're like, well, maybe I should add more tips, or did I explain that well enough, or whatever. For me, I understand that social media by definition is kind of short bites. I mean, I know YouTube videos can be longer form, podcasts can be longer form, but generally when we're creating content, whether it's emails, Instagram captions, TikToks, etc., even on a 20-minute YouTube video or even a 45-minute podcast, there is simply not enough space to cover everything that can be said on that topic. So for me, part of trusting myself is trusting that whatever I have to give today is good enough for today's content session. And if, I think of some things later, or I think about something that I wish I would have said or that I forgot to say, well, guess what? That can just become a part 2 of that content, right? I do this a lot with my podcast where I'll do podcast topic and I'll kind of riff on it. And then later I'll go home and I'm like, oh, I forgot to mention this and I forgot to talk about that. Well, guess what? That just becomes part 2 of the same podcast, which then becomes more content that I'm able to create quickly. So never forget to trust yourself. All right, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you want even more content creation help, you are gonna love my content planning cheat sheet. You can download it for free by clicking the link below. All right, thanks so much for watching this video. If you can't wait until my next YouTube video, make sure you are subscribed to my podcast, The Courtney Sanders Show. And if you can't wait for my next podcast or my next YouTube video, definitely make sure you are following me on Instagram. I'm posting there basically daily. You can see the behind the scenes of my life. It's CourtneyLSanders on Instagram. I only have one Instagram account, so if somebody is trying to message you or there's a spammer out there, it's not me, and I would never misspell my own name, right? So it's CourtneyLSanders, spelled correctly. Only one account, but make sure you follow me over there. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.